order, and we ask that you would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I wish to thank the members of the commission that were here this evening for taking time to join us for the special session. Roll call. Next, we have the approval of minutes from the June 13th meeting. We have a copy of the minutes that were submitted to the board earlier. We're looking for approval, but I will point out we had one item discussed last time concerning the approval of the minutes from the December 15th meeting, 2015. That's still an unresolved issue at this time. So I would entertain either a motion to table approval of the minutes from June 13 or to approve as presented, but with the notation that the December minutes are still being reviewed. At this time, I would look for some action on approval of the minutes from the June 13th meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of June 13th.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Second.
I second.
Have a motion and a second for further discussion.
Only that we are going to exclude the minutes from December in this motion.
Jason, you want to clarify?
I think that we should, approve those minutes as well, so that we could close that portion of the business, because at this point, we don't have a resolution.
Well, that's a little tough for me because I wasn't on the commission when those minutes were.
And I was on the commission, Mr. Miller. If I was in attendance at that meeting, that's one of my.
Commissioners, what I would recommend is that I'd like to confirm, between you and Commissioner Morag, and make sure that they were, see if they were present. But we can ultimately, we could have a motion before the commission approve it as its content talked about previously at the meeting, but we didn't actually take any action on it. Is that correct, Tanya? Still hanging. Confirm
Look
it
at
for
it
the
for
next
the
meeting.
11th.
It's just clarification for those in the meeting.
I have three quick updates on A, B, and C. At the last Redevelopment Commission meeting, you unanimously approved, in theory, the contract with Riemann Schneider Associates Incorporated. That contract is now being reviewed by our legal counsel, and we'll have an update for you planned to be on the July 11th meeting. But it has been agreed to in theory by you, the Redevelopment Commission.
So we're pending legal review and approval, correct?
Yeah, and so Commissioners, I provided comments on the contract. I would expect to get those back in short order, and hopefully we can have it finalized by the next meeting. So.
Thank you very much. Members of the commission, any questions at this time for Mr. LePage? All right, going on to update B, an update on Enterprise Boulevard. Mr. LePage, if you could, please.
This, you may remember, is an issue that Mr. Morag brought up at the last meeting, asking about and checking to see on the status of that agreement that was signed with the Redevelopment Commission and American Structure Point in November of 15. We have checked with Clerk Treasurer Tanya Thayer, and we found that contract. It was, in fact, as Mr. Morag indicated, signed in November of last year. Work has been going on. We've actually reached out to members of American Structure Point, and they're going to update the RDC on where that process stands on July 11th. So they'll be actually here in person to say where the money has been going and then where it's going forward.
Very good. Commission, any questions or any inquiry concerning the Enterprise update for Mr. LePage? Thank you. So we'll look forward to having that presented to us at the July 11th meeting. Thank you, Joe. Last update. We have
Where that stands now.
I mean, we do. Similar really to what Duke has put before us right now, and we'll have to have the proper notices. That's why I wouldn't anticipate it's going to be ready by July 11th.
So would you say it'd be done in August?
Hopefully, certainly by then. So, I mean, especially we want to take account of the good weather and get that done.
Okay, very good.
If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Morag also had a question, not to put words in his mouth when he's not here, Joe, concerning the obligation of the RDC to maintain roads that have been funded. I don't know if any opportunity had been to look at that, but I think maybe it would be good if Mr. Lee could respond to that simply as a courtesy to Mr. Morag's inquiry at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay? I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Mr. Milburn?
I have a comment to make about that. You recall when this was started, I had some concerns about curbs, gutters, and other things that might, in the long run, really be a better way of handling that one stretch. I think it was item number 2, or identified as section 2. I asked Mike Whitman, the general manager of Lebanon Utilities, since there was a question about the cost of moving utilities, if he could give us some kind of an idea in reviewing that, what those costs might be if we were to do the curbs, gutters, and result in the movement of various utility pieces. And he did that, and he sent me a letter here, which I would like to introduce and just make it a part of the minutes, if we can. And it indicates that the electric which includes not only Lebanon Utilities but Boone County REMC, would be approximately $100,000. That's total for the two pieces. For the water and wastewater, the estimated cost was $20,000. So in total, about $120,000 is the additional cost of utility infrastructure in order to actually widen that road and to be able to put in the curbs and the gutters. Now, of course, curbs and gutters is not a part of this, but this is just a movement. But you'll recall that Mr. Lee indicated that he thought it would be between $1 million and $2 million to do that. So there is a considerable difference. Larry may have been thinking about, the completed job versus just the movement of utilities. I'm not sure, but that was a number that I would so that we look forward sometime down the future. It's not going to be a part of what's before us in terms of the bids that take care of this thing on a short-term basis, but a longer-term view, this might be good information to have as a part of the record. So if I may do that.
Please, and I appreciate the initiative you took, Mr. Milburn. To that point also, if it would be possible for Mr. Lee to provide the commission with the basis for his proposal for bid, his request for bid proposal, so we could look at the scope of work that he is bidding on. I think that might allow us to have a little better understanding of what we're actually looking at there. If you recall, as Mr. Milburn mentioned, there was discussion. I think most of the commission has actually visited the site, looked at that, had some questions and concerns about the width of the current existing road, shoulder damage that had been done by the heavy truck traffic that was to use the road. Correct me if I'm wrong. But looking at possibly extending the work we were going to do to maybe add the longevity to the project, so we wouldn't be coming back in a while. So with the commission's endorsement, I would ask Mr. LePage if you could see if Mr. Lee could get to us a copy of the scope of work that he's putting out for bid. That would allow us to see exactly what he's still bidding, what the anticipated is. I think we were under $1 million, if I'm not correct, for the original proposal without curbs, site prep, and gutters for the rain. So if you could do that, I would appreciate that. If we could have that before the proposal goes out for bid, we would appreciate it. And Commission, we take a look at that and then make comment as we see fit. Now that we have some estimated costs on that, we would appreciate that. Other questions or comments to Mr. LePage? Mr. Milburn, again, thank you for taking the initiative to do that. That helps us. I think we're all here to do a good job, get a bang for our buck, so that's what we want to do. Other questions? Good. All right. Hearing none other, let's move on then to agenda item 2D. We have here with Duke Realty, we had looked at a West Council proposal, West Council Drive proposal, and we asked for an update. And we have representatives from Duke, Mr. Bruce Dillon and colleague. And you at this time, if you could just give us a brief overview, I think from the proposal we had last time, maybe just give us a little more understanding and a visual of where we're going. So.
Pass out some drawings here real quick. As the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I heard you wanted this brief, so
Thank you.
lots of those words on paper. So my name is Blaine Paul. I'm a Senior Development Services Manager with Duke Realty Corporation. Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Blaine Paul, a Senior Development Services Manager with Duke Realty Corporation. Our offices are located at 600 East 96th Street, Suite 100 in Indianapolis, Indiana, again for the record. I'm here this evening with Bruce Dillon to talk with you about the West Council Drive project that we would like to present to you this evening. I think this is a project that you've seen before, but I think some time has passed, and so I wanted to give you a bit of a refresher. The first exhibit that you have up there on 11 by 17 paper is the same as I have on the board mount here. It's an overall aerial of Lebanon Business Park, and I would just like to orient everyone before I start going into specifics. But up here in the upper right-hand corner, we have Interstate 65. State Route 39 interchange is right here. State Route 32 is right up here. The area specifically that we're talking about is kind of in the southwest corner of the park, and the road is conceptually drawn here in red on this exhibit. just north of one of our large regional detention basins. Directly north of the project is a property that's owned by U.S. Cold Storage, and they were part of the right-of-way strategy to make this road possible. And located due south of the proposed road is where DA Lubricants is located. Another project that I think you have some familiarity with that I want to also point out is the regional detention basin that the city spoke with us about a year and a half ago. Is located down here, this large blue square, not to scale. I'm sure it'll look much more artistic than that when it gets built. So moving on, the next page, we've got a little bit more detail for you here. The road in total length is a little bit over 2,400 square feet, or 2,400 linear feet, excuse me. Talk about buildings a lot. We tie into existing Edwards Drive on the west end, and then we also tie into existing Council Drive on the east end. Both Council Drive and Edwards Drive pretty much a dead end. They're north-south corridors. And so really one of the main goals of this project is to have another east-west corridor through the park that will allow traffic and future developments in this area to have more than one way in and out of this area, which is actually a feature that many businesses really appreciate and enjoy at Lebanon Business Park. If you look at it from a global perspective, having the two interchanges there, right to I-65, gives them a lot of comfort that they can get ingress and egress to their businesses. It also adds another layer of public safety. Granted, they can run their business better, but also public safety vehicles can also access these properties via multiple avenues in case there happens to be an accident or one road is closed. So all of the road that's proposed is being or has been designed and will be constructed to local city right-of-way standards. So some of the pavement considerations that were just mentioned, curb gutters, things of that nature, will be part of the scope of this project. And so I guess with that, I would be happy to open it up with any questions you might have.
I have a question. The dashed in green, and I apologize if you mentioned this, within that space, what's the are there things proposed to be built currently?
It's on the prior page.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Realty control.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the area that is dashed in green is either land that Duke Realty owns or has an option on. And I believe that the city or the Redevelopment Commission, I'm not sure exactly what legal entity it is, but I believe owns a portion of this area down here. I think that is accurate.
Okay, and there's no proposed anything in the works as far as what's going to be built, or?
Well, there's always things in the works, not things that I can really probably speak specifically about right now, but we are always speaking to people about the park and always talking about the features we have with the rail spur, with the world-class business park, business-friendly community climate that we were fortunate enough to be in. So yes, there's always lots of great things to talk about with the park, and there are active customers involved that we're talking to right now. I just can't really share any more specifics at this time.
Okay.
Can you
Thank you.
provide a little more detail on the Basin project as far as the status? You said you presented it about a year and a half ago, and then where is it today?
Yeah, so the project was originally brought to the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission, I want to say in the first or second quarter of 2015, I think, but please don't quote me on that. It's a plus or minus kind of thing. I've slept many times since then. And I guess basically, and can you please remind me your question? I'm sorry. Can you state your question
I
again?
just want to understand where the project sits today.
Okay,
Many of us
very
are-
good. I'm so sorry. So,
I could probably best address that.
okay, all right, no problem, Bruce, here.
And where we stand right now, and I've got a microphone. And just to introduce myself for the record, I'm Bruce Dillon, Senior Project Manager for Duke Realty. And Duke Realty is the construction manager on behalf
If you
of
could just speak, bring the microphone a little closer
Okay.
to you, Bruce.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Do I need to repeat that?
I don't know, you asked the guys in the back, they gave me the thumbs up that you're good to go now.
Thumbs up, okay.
Thank you.
Where was I?
I serve as part-time AV assistant
Yeah, okay.
in the process as
Duke,
well, so.
Duke Realty is the construction manager for the Redevelopment Commission for this project. And where we stand on the project, June 13, we had the public bid opening at your meeting. I was not here, I was on vacation that evening, so another associate of Duke represented us here. We had very good response. There were 2 contracts that were being bid that night. Earthwork and storm sewers was one of the contracts, and we had 8 bids on that. And then asphalt paving and concrete curbs was the second contract, had 5 bids on that. The bids have been evaluated, and I'm here this evening to make recommendations on the contract awards and to have the notice of award issued, have the notice of award executed so I can send it to the contractors. At that point in time, then I will be issuing the contracts to those contractors. They will return them to me along with various other contract documents such as performance bond, payment bond, certificate of insurance. Once that is signed, then we are set for a pre-construction conference, July 13, start work August 1, and be complete by November 15.
Well, I appreciate that explanation. What I was asking about in particular was the Basin project. Is that included in that first?
Wait, the what?
The Basin.
The
The
Basin project,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's okay.
No problem at all, and this time I promise I will not lose my train of thought. I could have stood here and rambled for many, many minutes, but I just wanted to fess up. So as far as the Basin project is concerned, it is my understanding that proposed development, proposed impervious surface is what will be I guess the catalyst that would cause that to be constructed, okay? And so much of this area here is in a situation where fill material is required to build it up so that it can be developed according to local rules and regulations. And so the dirt that is located here will very likely be dug and placed over here. So that's a benefit to both parties because it's expensive to haul great distances, whether you're trying to bring it in or whether you're trying to haul it off. So right now, that's kind of the tentative plan. And again, it will be driven by a development at some point in time, hopefully in the very near future.
Just as a point of clarification, I believe it was second quarter. We did approve for kind of everything from environmental impact study to, soil samples, cores, borings. That was to be established to look at the development of this property that, again, I believe in the dotted area, Jason, to take benefit from everything from the rail spur to the roads to allow for expansion of the business park coming this way. Now, we can
Dr.
look further
Taylor, yeah,
clarification.
your
Yeah,
recollection is spot
those-
on.
Those soil samples, environmental impact, they're spotted toad frogs or whatever we got to look for. That has come back. Then this is the soil here. It's my understanding, does need to have some additional fill. Now, to the status of completion, I can't address that. But that finished up from the last RDC. The purpose of that project was to basically prepare this site for future and further development, either for spec building or for existing owners that wanted to come in and build. Because it tied in, too, with the rail spur. For some reason, that was a big attraction for folks. And so CSX, am I saying that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, CSX was a big motivator on that to put Lebanon Business Park as one of the top regional and basically throughout not only the donut states, but expanding quite a distance out as one of the top targeted sites for development. I know the EDC is aware of this and some of the things they're doing as well. So that gives you what background history I have, Jason, and I don't know if that's extensive. or
I
not.
really can't add much more to it. I think
Very
that was
good.
very well said.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the commissioner? Mr. Milburn?
Yeah, I have a question on page 2. It shows where West Council Drive is going to come through, and it looks like that there's a piece of the rail spur that currently, sits on the, what would it be, the north side there?
Yeah, that's correct.
What's that configuration going to do? You moving that spur back to the other side of the
I
road?
can
or-
address that, sir.
Okay.
We have a design for that is in front of CSX right now for their final approval. The rail spur will stay in the current location. It's just the rail spur needs to be beefed up to handle truck traffic going across it. and we are into CSX right now for review of that design.
Very good.
So it's not going to truncate, what you're saying
Yeah.
is it'll be incorporated in the road work?
It is a part of this project, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Milburn. Other questions from commission? Well, thank you for the presentation. From my standpoint, I appreciate having the visuals, so that helps a lot as we move forward with our involvement with this project. So thank you to Blaine and Paul. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Bruce. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Would open it up for any comment from the members in attendance this evening?
Sir,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
one more agenda item.
Yes, Bruce.
Yes.
No, we're not done. I know we're not.
Yeah,
We're
okay,
gonna move
okay,
forward.
okay.
Trust
Okay,
me.
all right.
I understand where we're
Okay,
going.
I'm sorry.
Ride with me here. So, but it's a public comment at this time on just the discussion of the presentation. Please step up to the podium and identify yourself, please.
Hi, Mayor Smith, I'm resident of Redevelopment. What is the status of the CSX select site designation?
I don't have the answer to that. We can find out. That was in reference to some things I was talking about, the CSX site selection. We do have Mrs. White,
Paul was really involved with that, so I thought he might have some updated information.
Molly Whitehead, the executive director of the Boone EDC, I think, does.
Sorry, thank you. Good evening, Molly Whitehead, Executive Director of the Boone County Economic Development Corporation. To answer Aaron's question about the CSX Site Select program, that's been a program that Duke and the city have been pursuing for quite some time now, probably at least, it predates me, and I've been here almost 2 years, so much longer than that. We actually do hope to have an announcement pretty soon, hopefully yet this summer, on that particular piece of the puzzle. And that is that CSX, having that road extension in there, while it may not be, a make or break decision for CSX, that is a key component of having that particular parcel of land completely ready to go. I did want to address one of the questions about the potential projects. The CSX Site Select program is one of those larger projects we've been working on that hinges on this particular road development. We do have another potential user that's looking at this part of the business park. We've actually brought in about 3 different companies over the past couple of months that have looked at this piece of land, and that road extension is one of those drivers in considering Lebanon and what puts us ahead. We do think we're pretty close to closing a deal with another potential company, so having this road will certainly greatly benefit us.
thank you, Molly. And for my own refresher and for the new members of the commission, if you could just give a quick review of the CSX Select Site program that Mr. Smith referenced and kind of an overview so we understand what that is exactly.
Sure. So CSX is the rail provider here in the Lebanon Business Park. They go through different sites that are in their network, rail-served properties that they have, evaluate them, and it's a very lengthy process. Again, Duke has been working quite a bit of time with CSX on this development. But they designate the property, they make sure all of the soil testing is done, that, pretty much anything and everything you'd ever want to know about this site is taken care of. And honestly, it is probably the #1 reason why this prospect that we're looking at has put Lebanon at the very top, because it's completely ready to go. You may have to pay a little bit more per acre than you might in other sites, but the speed of getting up to business for companies, especially as they have run out of room in other facilities and need to get a new building out of the ground very quickly. That's an advantage we have that most other communities around the state may not have. So again, look for hopefully an announcement here in the next month, let's say.
And so just again, for my own refresher, the CSX is a major rail player in the
Correct.
Midwest, and it's a national representative as well.
Correct.
So companies that use them for rail purposes of transporting goods, bringing in raw materials for manufacturing, and/or moving items for logistical purposes rely on CSX heavily in lieu of also the interstate traffic that we had referenced earlier, Blaine referenced as our 2 points. So is that, am I correct in that statement?
That's exactly correct. Quite a bit of us in economic development have different sites and buildings databases. We operate one for all sites and buildings in Boone County. CSX has one as well, and so when their customers are looking for potential expansion opportunities and they've got a good relationship with CSX, they may go to them first, in which case CSX is going to put their select sites at the top of the list. Let's look at those first before we go anywhere else.
So is it safe for me to assume that these types of updates, these types of relationships with CSX and the roads and connectors puts us in a better position to compete for the large
Definitely.
businesses that are interested in those type of services?
Definitely.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Commission, any other questions? I think, Molly, if we could take advantage of your
Sure.
corporate memory on this issue. Commission, any questions you might have, either regarding the current site or the CSX connection to Lebanon Business Park?
One other point of clarification on a question that was asked, the rail line. U.S. Cold Storage did have an option to actually extend that line up to their facility. They've not exercised that yet, but the way the rail line is structured, they have that option. And then, of course, we have plans, Duke has plans to get that extended for potential users, new users as well.
Very good.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Now, Bruce, we'll move on to that one element that you're...
Sorry.
That's all right.
Sometimes I get a little focused on one thing.
Moving on to new business. We have item A under new business, the agenda, to approve the bid selections for the West Council Drive process. As a point of clarification and a reminder to those in attendance, we did have the public bid opening. As we referenced, we had 2 projects. There's dirt work or site development, and then actually the infrastructure, roads, curbs, those types of things. I believe the numbers you gave were 8 submissions for project 1, which is the dirt work. And
No, we had 8 bids on the mass earthwork and storm sewer, and 5 bids on the asphalt paving and concrete curbs.
Okay.
So very good response.
good response. So, having those, Rob, could you give us the breakdown of what the bids are? Do we want to go ahead and just simply approve the low bids?
I have the notice of awards here. I'd like to pass
If you
it
could,
on to everybody.
if you might present those to the commission, I would appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, what I just distributed to you is the notice of award document for each of the contracts. And just to give a brief update, the total budget for the project is $1.4 million. And both, the bids for both contracts came in under the budget. And right now, I would project savings at the end of the project of somewhere in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. So economically, the project's in very good shape. The low bidder, successful bidder on contract 1, which is the mass earthwork and storm sewers, was Merit Contracting of Lebanon, Indiana. The low bidder on contract 2, which is the asphalt paving and concrete curbs, was Calumet Civil Contractors of Whitestown. The contract for Merit would be $445,331. The contract for Calumet would be $347,751. So what I would ask this evening, if these awards are acceptable to the commission, I would ask that Dr. Taylor sign these notice of awards. I will then issue them to the contractors along with the contract that they will be executing. Have them get that contract executed and back to me, along with their performance bond, their payment bond, their certificate of insurance, and site-specific safety plan, which is something that Duke requires.
You've reviewed all of the bids and the recommendations to ensure they're in compliance with the needed requirements for the job?
Yes, I did. I reviewed the bids in great detail, and they were in complete compliance. I also met with each contractor to review, the project to make sure that they were in compliance. So yes, I fully recommend both these contractors.
And with the recommendation, then, you feel that these are best value bids for what was submitted? Not only
Yes, I
low
do.
bid, but best value?
Well, low bid and best value.
Thank you.
Yes.
To clarify, appreciate that. Commission, I have before us the two recommendations of the public bid openings that we had last meeting. One, as mentioned, was for the mass earthwork, storm sewers, guardrails, and seeding to be awarded to Merit Contracting of Lebanon, Indiana, and the value proposed of $445,331. Contract number 2, which is the asphalt paving and concrete curbs, to be awarded to Calumet Civil Engineers of, is that Whitestown? Do I have that correct?
Yes, it is.
Whitestown, Indiana, in the amount of $347,751. I would entertain at this time a motion under consent to accept both bids as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to accept both bids as presented.
We have a motion to accept both bids. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Having a motion and a second, do we have any further discussion on these two bids? We got, let the commission have their discussion. Okay. Good. Any discussion from the commission? At this time, anyone in public would like to have a speak, please say so. Please step to the podium and state your name.
Good evening, Commission. Apologies, Dr. Taylor. Corey Coots, resident of Lebanon, Indiana. I do need to disclaim that I do sit on the City Council. These opinions are mine solely, not of the city. Calumet has had a lot of history with this city. They currently, to my knowledge, have done 3 projects and have failed to complete all 3 in a timely fashion and with the quality. So I would recommend going with a different bid. So
I have a question, Corey. Do you know
Yes.
what projects they were?
they're currently operating on Indianapolis Avenue, Phase 1. They, sorry. They operated on the Meridian Street, and they did the state portion of Lebanon Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Smith, a Lebanon resident. I would like to echo and agree with the recommendation from Mr. Coots. I am a meeting attender, and I have attended almost every Lebanon Stormwater Management Board meeting for the last 3 years. And one topic of considerable concern and consternation was the performance of Calumet on the North Meridian Street project. They were not responsive to repeated pleas to provide workers on the job so that the job would be completed on time. The job was completed much later than it was scheduled to be completed. Communication with them was very, very difficult from the Lebanon Stormwater Management Board, and their responsiveness to requests for information and their reluctance to provide enough employees to do the job on time was a big reason that there was a $700,000 cost overrun on a $2 million project. And I just want to echo that I, as a citizen, have reservations about whether Calumet is the best for the job, whether or not they are the low bidder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Bruce, during your meeting with Calumet, did you address some of these topics?
I was not aware of those topics. Calumet is a contractor that has worked for Duke several times on Duke projects, always successfully, has always met our schedules. We've never had any quality problems. Regarding this particular project, West Council Drive, they will be working under the supervision of Duke Realty. And there are also liquidated damages if they do not meet the contractual dates. So I have full confidence that Calumet will successfully complete the contract.
Mr. Dillon, in essence, Duke is acting as project manager for this.
Pardon me?
Is Duke acting as project manager?
We are the construction manager.
Construction
yes.
manager, thank you for
We will
clarification.
have a superintendent, a full-time Duke employee who will be on site on a daily basis overseeing the work.
And if you could elaborate a little bit more on your comment about liquidation or noncompliance.
Oh, the liquidated damages?
Yes, please.
Yes. Going from memory, I believe it's $250 per calendar day.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions or discussion at this point?
I have a question regarding previous work. Does anyone have answers to this? And this is strictly, I just don't know. Indianapolis Avenue, Meridian Street, Lebanon Street, was there a construction manager in that case? And were there liquidated damages in those instances? Does anyone know?
I don't believe Duke was
not involved.
manager
Sure,
on
they
that.
probably weren't on that.
So that would be the city, and I'm not sure. I don't have those answers.
Specific person that oversees construction with knowledge.
Please.
There was a construction manager on the North Meridian Street project. I believe it was Beam, Longest, and Neff. They had a supervisor / inspector on site every day, and that did not help with the coordination and timely completion of the project. They were sent notice of liquidated damages. The Lebanon Stormwater Management Board has stopped talking about the status of receiving those damage monies from Calumet. It's a really sticky legal conundrum that the Stormwater Management Board attorney is currently involved with Calumet. There was considerable difficulty in negotiating just exactly how late they were. And to my knowledge, Calumet has not paid liquidated damage to this point. Ms. Thayer may know if she's received any monies from Calumet at all.
I would have to,
You
I don't
don't
know
know,
when
so-
that would be. The project's been going on for years. Without me looking back at records, I
So,
can't tell you that.
to my knowledge, they haven't paid any yet, but if they would have, Mrs. Thayer would have received it in the clerk treasurer's office, because she's also the secretary for the Stormwater Management Board. So, any other questions? Was that answer relatively clear? Or?
That was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate that. Commission, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve as recommended the two bids that were given. I will simply say, as part of discussion, Duke is a valued partner for the city of Lebanon. I believe that they have heard the concerns from our community members. They know the importance of having this project completed in time and under or budget. We've already heard that, or right on where the projected is. While I certainly validate the concerns that have been presented, I think it is prudent upon the members of this commission to take action on this at this time so we can make a determination as the direction we're heading. So hearing no further, Mr. Milburn, do you have a
I do
comment?
have a question for Mr. Dillon. Since you're going to be the construction manager, or Duke is, on this particular piece with this contract.
Yes.
And hearing the liquidation damages alternative in terms of what happens under a contract, are you in a position, if the RDC approves this, are you in a position to fire, in effect, the contractor if once a contract's been signed, if they aren't performing their duties? Or is it just strictly fall back to the legal issue of who is going to try and litigate this in order to collect the fee?
Okay. Within the contract that Calumet will be executing, there are clauses where the contract can be terminated for lack of production. So yes, the contract has that in there.
Thank you.
Just again, for the record, there's a bid project manual that all the contractors had reviewed, was part of the bid package documents, and Duke put together the construction documents that are in there, and so those will have whatever the rights and remedies that should a contractor be in default, the process that we need to follow. I'm not aware of the other projects that were mentioned in here, but I think, again, also to clarify, Mr. Dillon, I mean, your recommendation, at least to the commission, is that these two contractors that you submitted are the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidders, in your opinion, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Further discussion? Appreciate everyone's input at this time. At this time, I'll call for the vote on the motion to approve as submitted the two bid awards for contract number 1 and contract number 2 on the West Council Drive project. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Contracts approved. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We also have one other item of business this evening under new business. Apologize, this was just a late arrival received for legal counsel. We have, and I believe you did receive email copies of this from a request from Umbaugh and Associates looking for the approval of a authority for the president of the RDC to sign a TIF excess letter. This letter was presented, a copy of this again was sent to the commission through email today. It addresses the excess assessed value. And Rob, if you could give a little clarification before we move forward on that motion.
Yes, Commissioners, again, all this is we're looking for a motion by the commission to authorize the president to execute this letter to the taxing authorities that are attached to it, indicating that for the tax allocation areas for 2016, that there is no excess assessed value in there. So it's all we're looking for is a motion to authorize authority to the president here.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I would entertain a motion to authorize the commission to sign the letter as indicated and requested by Umbaugh and Associates.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this topic? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries, and approval is hereby authorized. Having no other, yes, Ron?
Mr. President, I have one other motion that I would like to have before you in talking with Duke. We would, with respect to the West Council Drive project, we'd like to have a motion by the commission to authorize, to the extent that there would be any change orders or any reasons that Duke would need someone, whether to sign something related to this project, that we would like a motion to have the president, and if the president would not be available, to have the vice president be able to execute a change order. And this is on the West Council Drive project specifically.
Okay. And that wasn't contained in the original documentation?
I think a couple meetings ago, we talked about authorizing the president in general to execute agreements. One of the things that can come up really with any construction project, but sometimes you can have a change order that needs to be executed. And one concern, at least, I think rightfully so, that Duke raised, is if they need to sign something immediately, and for some reason, Dr. Taylor, if you weren't available, you were out of town, say, that we'd like to at least get the vice president to be able to execute a change order.
Did we, thank you, Rob. Tanya, or members of
I
council, I
think we
thought we
authorized you
approved
to do
that.
that.
I thought we already made that
The
motion.
minutes right now, so if you'll give me just a minute, I think that was on,
And so by default, if I'm not available, the vice president's not available, secretary, is that correct?
And again, I think we did that, generally speaking. Duke had just asked that we could do that specific to this project. It's just it's an ask by Duke, for the record.
And Commissioners, if I could give an example, when we get out and we're constructing the road, if we would run into, say, an area of unsuitable soils that need to be undercut and replaced with engineered fill, that would be a change order for Merit Contracting. And it's something that I can't wait a month for another, RDC meeting to get approval. It's something I need right away so we can keep the project moving along. So that's why.
I understand that, but I would be under the impression a motion was made that would have addressed that issue. Is there a reason you need a specific motion just
Well,
to
it
tie
was my
to Duke?
understanding the motion just pertained to signing contracts, but not change orders, was my understanding of the motion.
if we look at page 2 of the minutes from the last meeting, it says authorization for Dr. Taylor to sign contracts and change orders on behalf of the commission.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that, and that's why I watched this twice earlier today. I don't know if when that motion was made, the council was strictly talking about Remmenschneider Associates, or if that was just a blanket for everything. Because it,
The blanket, that was our protocol, and that's our general protocol, was my impression. Rob, what's the legal implications?
Yeah, I think, if the commission, just to avoid any clarity, I don't think it hurts to make a motion, and we can make it specific and general if you want to this project, but just to have it to be the president and the vice president, especially if there's questions being raised right now, just so there's no confusion going forward.
And my impression was the same as Jason's. I thought this was a protocol coverage. But my only concern is if we start down this road and set a precedent every time we come up against another request, a motion that we made, in my opinion, is binding and voted on by the commission, should be our guideline. We're now getting away from that and moving down selective paths based on specialty requests. I do have some concern about that. I think, my opinion as we sit, and the commission can speak to this, is we made a motion that covers the issues of change orders, covers the protocols for who can sign and what the procedure is for absentees and for getting the job done immediately. Having said that, I wouldn't say that I'm questioning whether you're questioning our word of honor about how we'll deal with that, but I think based on the integrity of the members of the commission, we made a motion, we took a vote, we authorized for change orders and for contracts to be signed as needed on a timely matter. My opinion would be, at this point, Commission, that a motion is not called for, that the motions we have in place would address your issues and concerns. We're trusting you to do your job. If you'll trust us to do ours, I think the relationship starts off on a good foot.
That's fine with me.
Would entertain any other comment from fellow commissioners?
Should we just clarify what we meant in the previous minutes?
Well, I'd agree with that, because right now it doesn't say a hierarchy. It just says that it's Dr. Taylor at this point, and that's my reading of
I think
the
our
motion.
bylaws, though, don't they, Rob, cover the procedure?
Oh, the hierarchy?
I think, Jason.
Okay.
I haven't read them lately, and so I haven't needed to fall asleep at night by reading something that boring. So clarification is a good point, Linda. So let us clarify that the motion, if you could include this in this minutes, is there, so we have that, since that seems to be our fault. The previous motion was intended to not only authorize the signing of change orders and contracts as needed prior to as emergency or prior to formal meetings, but also outlined that the protocol for those signatures would be president, if not available, vice president, if not available, secretary, if not available, a commission member that was available to sign. Do we have clarification and agreement on that?
I'm sorry, we discussed this the last time, and we voted not to do that per Rob, and now, after watching this, the last meeting twice today, that was the discussion the last time, and we decided that Dr. Taylor would be the only one to sign, so. It doesn't matter to me, but we, like I said, it was, if you go back and look at last time's meeting, the same discussion came up, and everyone decided that we wouldn't do that.
Okay, so I think you raised a question, I think, first of all, you didn't know whether or not we were talking about Riemann Schneider or not.
Right.
And my recommendation to the commission is that we would have the motion that's before us, allow for the president. If the president's not available, we do the vice president and go on and at least be able to address it, especially as it's related to these contracts and any change orders. I think in general, if we ever have a question that needs to be addressed, and we may have them on a per project basis, then we can bring it before the commission and address it at that time.
So all that being said, does that mean that we need a new motion to clarify the hierarchy of voting, of signatures? Based on the notes that you, based on the conversation that you observed today, and then based on the vagueness of it as it sits today, Rob? What's your opinion?
I think it's appropriate if you just want to include having it, if the president's unavailable, that we could have the vice president, and then as Dr. Taylor indicated, the secretary, just to clarify that for the record. That's fine.
Okay. Well, then I guess I would like to make that motion that, as protocol, we establish the hierarchy as the president, as the primary signer. Secondary would be the vice president. Tertiary would be the secretary. And then, as a means of last resort, a commission member.
So we have a
Commission
motion
member.
as read. Tanya? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
It's either commission member? Is that,
It's a hierarchy of president,
got
vice
that.
president, secretary, or commissioner.
but there's, for all those spots, there's only one person. For commission member, there are two, so it's either or. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that how we're stating it?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be such a rare case. I think we're managing the exception.
We have a motion in front of the commission. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Did you second? Second. Have a motion and a second. We've discussed this. Any further discussion?
I have a question. I understand what this is. So are we amending this from the last meeting? Are we leaving this and just adding to it the hierarchy? Or are we making a new one?
We already have a motion that's been approved for authorizing the president to sign. The motion that's on the table now is to define the hierarchy
Okay.
if the president is not available.
Okay, got it.
Is that clear? We're
It
good?
is.
We're good? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Motion to correct the motion is in motion to correct the motion. Thank you, Commission, I appreciate that. Thank you to our presenters and those community members which spoke this evening. We appreciate your input and time that you take. Hearing no other agenda items and seeing no other action necessary by the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission, I hereby declare the meeting closed at this time. Thank you.
I need a motion and a second.
For what?
Meeting.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second, all in favor? All opposed? I don't care.